Welcome to Upleveling, the podcast dedicated to building better leaders, smarter systems, and bigger results. Most business owners jump straight into goal setting without ever stopping to ask if last year actually worked. So last week on the podcast, we talked about the difference between issues-based planning and goals-based planning. And many business owners need to first address what issues they need to solve before they start setting financial goals like revenue, which is why I recommend more issues-based planning. Reflection is what turns our experience into clarity and allows us to move forward and to make improvements. Today, we're going to talk about reflection and a framework for you to bring this into your business to capture a lot of this information so you really can get clear on moving forward. And this is not about beating yourself up. It's really just about seeing different patterns so you can make smarter decisions and designing a different year on purpose. Let's talk about why reflection is a non-negotiable. I want you to think experience alone doesn't create wisdom. It's the reflection that does. Because honestly, if you're anything like me, you're busy wearing 5 different hats in your business. And if you don't stop to reflect, you're likely to continue with the same patterns and the same habits. And that means you're going to get the same outcome. That's not going to get you to the next level. The most common mistakes I see are business owners setting bigger revenue goals without fixing the underlying problems. They're not fixing the margin problems or the cash flow stress or really the owner overload. You're just repeating the same fire every single year and wondering when it's going to get better. And another mistake I see a lot is really measuring success only by the top line revenue. I've had this conversation with so many clients over the past quarter where they're making more in revenue but the same in the bottom line. That means you're working harder for the same amount of money. Wouldn't you rather either not work as hard and make the same money or fix these fires and make a lot more money? That's at least what I want for you. So what does reflection really reveal? It's going to tell you what looked successful but really wasn't sustainable, what quietly worked well, and maybe you need to repeat, or what you personally no longer want. And if you don't take the time to sit down and kind of put this on paper, you're not going to identify it. And again, you're just going to repeat the same mistakes you've made in the past. So let's talk about a reflection framework. You guys know, if you've been here for a while, I love a good framework. So this is one that I follow. I do this actually every year individually for myself. And we also do it with our team. I think that can be really impactful. And the reason is your team members are going to see things that you don't necessarily see. So we do it a little bit differently than what I do individually. And we can talk about that in another episode because I do think that will be helpful for you guys to know. Because again, like I said, your team's going to see things that you don't see, especially if you've got 10 plus employees, or I would even say 7 plus employees, because you're not seeing all the things that they're doing and you're not doing all of the jobs that they're doing. So their reflection becomes very important. So in this episode, we're just going to walk through this framework so that you can do this for yourself. I want you to sit down with a piece of paper and a pen and write this out. I wouldn't even do it on a computer. I think it's important to put it on paper so you're actually having to think through these things and it helps your brain identify them better. So we're going to go through 3 core questions. The first one is what worked? I want you to reflect on revenue growth and thinking about what worked there. Was it new sales tactics, new marketing campaigns, maybe new processes? But what really moved the needle in revenue this year? Then systems that finally clicked. So is this things like we've finally got our processes documented, or everyone's following the same process, your production is consistent, Think about what worked there. Then your team wins. Did you change your hiring process and maybe you added some great employees? What really worked about that? Did you create a better interview process? Did you create a better hiring or training process? Did you implement an incentive plan that led to higher production? Really, where did you win with your team, or how did you improve your culture? Then we're going to reflect on the decisions that you're proud of. So what decisions did you make that worked out really well? What about that process led to a positive outcome? Or did you do something different in that decision making than you've done before? And you want to really go deeper on this and think, why did these things work? Was it repeatable or just situational? Did it rely on you too heavily? Because here's the thing, we're not just celebrating wins, we're identifying the patterns that are worth scaling. Next, we're going to look at what did not work. And this is completely normal. More than likely, this question's going to have a longer answer than the other two, and that is normal. Because if nothing failed, you are not pushing it. And I say all the time around here, if I'm not winning, I'm learning. And there's a lot of learning that goes on. So the areas that we want to explore here are, let's write down maybe hires that didn't work out. But why didn't they work? Is this a people or a process problem? Did your interviewing fail, or did your training fail? What didn't work? Next is, what expenses didn't produce an ROI? Where did spending money not produce a result? Also know that this is very normal. This past summer, I spent $12,000 with a marketing agency that was a total flop. But you know what? I learned a lot from that experience. And those are lessons that I would not have known without going through that. Yes, I'd rather have the money, but you know what? I will not make those mistakes again. So learning is really valuable. Or I guess, let me rephrase that. Reflecting on learning is really valuable. But the next area I want you to explore is stress points that kept resurfacing. Is it your calendar? Is it employee issues that keep coming across your desk? Maybe it's cash flow. But start thinking about the things that kept you stressed all year long. And again, this is not about blame. It's about data. We want to measure what matters, and that's what we're able to fix as long as we're measuring it. The things that we don't focus on and we ignore, we're never going to improve them. So you want to ask yourself, were these systems issues? Were they timing issues? Were there capacity issues? But these questions are going to lead to better results. So our last question, what do you want to be different? This is really where your reflection turns into strategy. It's not saying things like more revenue or less stress. You want to figure out, how do you want your role to change? How do you want decisions to feel? What do you want your calendar to look like? What can't come with you into next year? This is where clients really realize the goal isn't growth, it is alignment. And if you don't identify what these things are and what you want, you're not going to get them. So now we're going to take those things and we're going to turn our reflection into action, because your reflection is what is going to feed your goal planning or your issue planning. Reflection is going to answer what should continue, what should stop, and what should change. And then your goals should be built from those answers, not from pressure of comparison or pressure of revenue or pressure from competition. You want your goals to come from these answers so then you can have true growth. And again, that's what's going to lead to your alignment. So here's what you need to do. Block 30 to 60 minutes this week on your calendar. You guys know by now, if it's not on the calendar, it is not getting done. In fact, I would put this on the calendar and make it a recurring event every single year. But as you're doing this, maybe even look at your calendar over the past 12 months That's going to help trigger your memory of, were you stuck in a bunch of meetings that weren't productive? Did you get on client calls that should have a better flow? Like, what your calendar will tell you some of these things. But you really need to have that intentional time so you can think through what worked and what didn't. I want you to answer these 3 questions honestly. And again, make sure you're writing it down. This is something I told you already that I do every year. What's really fun is to look at previous years, because that's where I really see growth, because the issues I was dealing with 2 years ago are not the same issues I'm dealing with now. I've only been able to grow from those things because I stopped and I reflected on them and decided what needed to change so things didn't continue to happen, or reflected on the things that did need to continue to happen. So if you want help turning your reflection into clear goals and a real plan, I'd be happy to talk with you and show you how we help business owners get clarity and confidence in their business. Thanks for tuning in to Upleveling. If you found value in today's episode, be sure to subscribe and leave a review. It helps more entrepreneurs like you discover the show. Let's keep the conversation going. Connect with us on social media or visit aligncpa.com for resources and updates. Until next time, keep leading, optimizing, and upleveling.